High Evolutionary has been out for a couple days. I wanted to give my opinions on what I think the best decks there are. And I just want to say that there are some bad Evolutionary decks out there that have negative cube rates, negative win rates, and people are playing them a lot. I largely feel that the High Evolutionary is not optimized, but there are some very clear metas evolving, and I'm sure they're going to adapt. That being said, a lot of people are playing High Evolutionary. So if we look at this tier list, High Evolutionary is right behind me, is by far the most played at 26%. And what I'm going to suggest to you is that some of the High Evolutionary decks are actually way up here near the top, but the average is being drawn down by some of the bad decks. Now, let's just start with the basic High Evolutionary deck. This has good stats, good win rate, and in my opinion, like this type of build, which is like the build that I think I came to a conclusion was reasonable within like playing the deck for an hour or two, you know, got rid of Shocker, you know, Luke Cage and Hazmat are no brainer. We definitely needed some tech to counter the opponent's Luke Cage, so we had to run Rogue or Enchantress, and then She-Hulk just made a lot of sense as long as Sunspot. So this is like the logical, most played High Evolutionary deck, and at a minimum, the deck should not underperform this. Like the other archetypes out there should not do worse than what I refer to as the basic High Evolutionary build. This is just a basic High Evolutionary build. You typically do want to play off curve, and the reason for off curve is there's several cards that benefit from that. That would be Misty Knight, Cyclops, and Hulk. She-Hulk benefits to off curve. Sunspot benefits to off curve, and there you go. And then largely this deck is being ran everywhere, so you have to run some sort of countermeasures, and the choice is yours if you want to run Rogue or Enchantress. Also, you could do either Hazmat or Scorpion. Largely, I feel like Shocker is not that great. Now, best High Evolutionary deck, in my opinion, easily right now is going to be the Troll or the Control version of High Evolutionary. So the drawback to this deck is that it runs Jeff, the baby land shark, and people try to substitute out Jeff, the baby land shark, but when I see that happen, the cube rate like drops in half. Jeff, the baby land shark, is the best 2-drop, maybe next to Zabu. That might be the only one that is similar, but people do try subbing out Jeff on this build. I mean, sometimes they try to put in Sunspot, Daredevil, or Luke Cage, but really optimally it runs Jeff. And so this is kind of a mean deck. It runs Storm to lock out a location early, and a lot of these cards synergize so well with Storm, whether that is Nebula, Jeff, Cyclops, oh my god, Thing, oh my god. So back in the day, still currently, it was a thing, Storm plus Jessica Jones, right? Well, Storm plus Jessica Jones would give you 8 power. Well, Thing is 9 power. I mean, it's better than the Storm Jessica Jones combo. So there's so many cards here that have insane synergy with Storm, Nebula, Jeff, Cyclops, Thing. That's great. Then we have Professor X. Just lock out another lane, and if you can have Cyclops or Nebula in the lane that you put in Professor X, you can still have Jeff. Amazing. And then Spider-Man is so good. You typically want to play Spider-Man on turn 5, which means that you're not spending 5 energy. You're spending 4 energy, which allows Cyclops to go off and Hulk to continue to grow. It's like a 1-2 punch. Turn 5, Spider-Man, and then turn 6, Hulk for that lane. Before that happens, you primarily have a different lane locked up with Storm and some combination with Storm. So I do think this is the best version of High Evolutionary currently. And part of that is the other most popular played deck right now is Galactus. And this has some counterplay to Galactus with Professor X and Spider-Man. Not a lot, but a lot of these High Evolutionary decks just don't. And there's a lot of Galactus being played right now. The next deck that I actually like this one better than the basic Evolutionary deck, but a little bit less than the Control or the Tro Evolutionary deck, and that is a Wave one. Now, the Wave deck with High Evolutionary is amazing. It really is, because it provides meaningful counter when you play Wave on turn 5 to decks that want to dump their hands. So there's a lot of good bounce decks out there. There's also a lot of good Sarah decks out there. But when you play Wave on turn 5, it's going to lock them out. You know, any deck that's running Kitty, let's say, is going to have a hard time on turn 6. So the reason why I like this deck also is it gives a very crystal clear when to snap. You snap on turn 5 before you play Wave, and then a lot of good things happen. Because you play Wave on turn 5, you're not spending 5 energy, you're spending 3 energy. So then you're gonna get some soak into Sunspot, 2 energy there. Misty Knight might kick over 1 power to someone else. Cyclops might zap for 2, and then Hulk is growing by 2. And then you're gonna play a ridiculously large Hulk on turn 6, and there's nothing they can do about it. Like a 20 power, 22 power. I mean, the Hulk gets out of control. And then you're also not spending 6 energy on turn 6. You're spending 4 energy on turn 6 because all the cards cost 4 because of Wave. And that further gives more soakage in Sunspot. No power getting kicked out by Misty. Cyclops still pops up. Hulk still grows. So, personally, I like the gameplay of this deck the best out of all High Evolutionary. As far as I'm concerned, the Control is the best. The Wave version is the most fun for me to play. I just like the play style. And then at a minimum, these decks do better than the standard High Evolutionary build. Now we're gonna go into decks that may or may not be helping the stats on High Evolutionary. I just want to say that, the High Evolutionary decks, which is this one right here, Lockjaw is interesting. This build is actually better than the basic High Evolutionary deck, the basic one. But this one gets a lot of play and actually has a negative cube rate and a negative win rate. So I feel like there's some optimization and there's some opportunity for Lockjaw builds, just like a standard Lockjaw. There's one with Dracula that I like a lot. So I want to play this archetype more. Now, I did play Lockjaw and it felt way more inconsistent than the basic Evolutionary, way more less control-y than the Control version and the Wave version, but it also felt more explosive and putting out a lot of power. So this might be in the category of a cube stealer, but in general, I don't believe these deck lists are optimized, and frankly, this build right here has abysmal stats. Now, the next 2 decks are significantly worse than the basic High Evolutionary decks. Like, I feel like just play this. Just play this instead. Thanos builds. These have negative win rates, negative cube rates, and they're being played a ton. Again, the archetype is new. Maybe it just hasn't been fleshed out which one's going to be, but right now the Thanos decks appear to be worse, significantly worse than a just basic high evolutionary. And the reason I want to bring this up is that, you know, if you look at like the tier of all the different decks, then we've got high evolutionary here. If we eliminate the Thanos ones and the Lockjaw ones and the Moon Girl ones, like if those stats were removed from this right here, the high evolutionary would be way up at the top. It's just that the stats of the Thanos decks and this is actually probably the worst by far high evolutionary deck out there right now is the Moon Girl ones. This has like a minus 0.2, almost minus 0.2 cube rate and a negative win rate. And it's actually getting played a lot. So maybe there's some opportunity. I mean, the logic of Moon Girl makes a lot of sense to me on how you could take advantage of Moon Girl and get that going to go off. But in practice, it just doesn't seem to be more consistent than the standard high evolutionary build. So for me, you know, I'm hopeful that there will be some Thanos builds that come out that are better. Same thing with Moon Girl. The Lockjaw seems more promising than Thanos. So to wrap up the video, I want to say play the basic high evolutionary build. If you have Jeff the baby land shark, play this control build. If you don't have Jeff baby land shark, I would highly look into the wave version. And then lastly, if you don't have high evolutionary or don't want to play high evolutionary, I would recommend Sarah control. You're gonna need to slot in Luke Cage somewhere because high evolutionary is being ran everywhere and Luke Cage is an excellent counter. So this is the standard Sarah control build where Scarlet Witch has been replaced with Luke Cage. I know some people are replacing Hit Monkey with Luke Cage, but this is absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to your thoughts in the comment section on what deck is working for you as far as the high evolutionary goes. Maybe there's something I've missed. Let me know what you think. And as always, thanks for watching. Keep on gaming. Bye for now.